What the clinician cannot unsee: child maltreatment, elder abuse, and mandated reporting. There are moments in therapy that announce themselves. A client says, "I want to hurt myself." A child says, "I'm afraid to go home." A bruised face appears where there was none the week before. Those moments get our attention. But some of the most consequential moments in clinical practice do not announce themselves at all. They enter quietly, in the middle of another story, in a sentence the client almost did not say, in information the therapist was never looking for. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The session begins the way it usually does. The client sits down and says she is tired. Not sleepy, tired. She is the primary caregiver for her elderly mother, whose health has been declining. There is no one else regularly helping her. No sibling coming in on weekends. No relative taking over for an afternoon. No one giving her a night off. She works. She takes care of the children. She manages the house. And she takes care of her mother. "I'm just tired of doing everything," she says. The therapist listens. Caregiver fatigue is real. Burnout is real. Frustration is real. So far, nothing she has said is unusual for someone carrying more responsibility than she feels able to manage. Then she says something else. Yesterday, she did it again. The therapist asks what she means. She messed herself. Her mother had defecated in her adult brief and needed to be changed. The client says she knew. She could smell it, but she was exhausted. "I just couldn't do one more thing." So she left her mother sitting in it. At first, a few minutes passed, then more, eventually several hours. Her mother began calling for her. She told her daughter that her bottom was hurting, that it was burning, that she needed help. The client says she could hear her, but she did not go. And then, almost as though she were describing just another difficult moment in a very difficult day, she says, "She just kept complaining and complaining, and I lost it." The therapist listens more carefully now. "I screamed at her." The client pauses. "I told her to shut up. I told her I was sick of her. I told her she had no idea what she was putting me through." Another pause. "And I raised my hand." The therapist looks at her. The client quickly adds, "I didn't hit her." And that matters, but it is not the only thing that matters. She continues, "It took everything in me not to." And then she remembers something else. The children were sitting at the kitchen table. Little Lisa looked startled. Lacey began to cry. The client says she turned toward them and shouted, "What are you looking at?" And suddenly, this therapy session is no longer only about caregiver stress. The therapist did not begin the session asking about abuse. The client did not walk into the room intending to disclose neglect. She came to talk about being tired, about being overwhelmed, about having no help. All of those things are true. And now something else is true too. An older, medically vulnerable woman was left sitting in feces for hours after asking for help because she was experiencing pain. She was screamed at. A hand was raised toward her. The client acknowledges that she had to stop herself from striking her, and 2 children witnessed the interaction. The therapist did not go looking for this information. The client brought it into the room. And now the clinician cannot simply move on to the next topic. This is where clinical work becomes complicated, because empathy comes easily here. This client is exhausted. She may desperately need help. She may be experiencing caregiver burnout. She may love her mother deeply. She may feel trapped, resentful, ashamed, angry, and frightened by the person she is becoming. All of that can be true, and something harmful can still be happening. Understanding why a behavior occurred does not require the clinician to minimize what occurred. That distinction matters. Sometimes therapists become so focused on understanding the person sitting in front of them that they stop seeing the person who is not in the room. The mother is not sitting in the therapist's office, but her vulnerability entered the room through her daughter's story. The children are not the identified clients, but their startled faces and tears entered the room too. This is what systemic listening requires. Who else is present in this story, even when they are not sitting in the chair? Who depends upon the person speaking? Who has power? Who does not? who may be unable to protect themselves. And what did the clinician just learn? This is also where many new therapists ask the wrong first question.